Ric Bucher, Fox Sports NBA analyst, Fox Sports 1. You can see him on Speak, and of course, you can read his stuff at foxsports.com. Buke, what's your reaction to Paul George joining the Sixers?
Not surprised. I don't know that the Philadelphia 70. I mean, it was inevitable. Let's put it that way. In terms of the Clippers not being able to retain him, I was told and believe it to be true that when they signed Kawhi Leonard to his 3-year extension, that they made a promise to him that they wouldn't be signing Paul George or anybody else to extensions longer than his. And Paul was set on getting 4 years. There was some talk about potentially a sign and trade to the Warriors. There was a report out of the Bay Area that the Warriors were interested in making that happen. Clippers, I don't know that the Clippers wanted to send him to a rival and see him quite that often and create a threat out of the Warriors. So, look, Philadelphia had the wherewithal to do this where the Clippers couldn't make a deal where they were going to send him out and get something back. Philadelphia essentially didn't have anybody signed to be able to trade it back. So, in looking at the Clippers, I also have to believe that they stuck to their guns because Paul George is 33 years old. He had an opportunity to show that he could be the guy that could lead them at least to a playoff round victory, and he was unable to do that. And so, I believe that they are setting themselves up for a year from now, where if you look at the number of unrestricted free agents, Ivica Zubac is a free agent, P.J. Tucker, Terrence Mann, Russell Westbrook, Amir Coffey. They only have $110 million roughly committed to the 25-26 season. And so I think it's going to give them an opportunity to get into their new building and then hit the reset button.
You going to reset with Kawhi Leonard starting to get into his mid-30s?
Yeah, well, look, they have to keep somebody. They have to hold over, and quite clearly, looking at. I mean, you could make the case. Okay, you're going to keep Paul George. They couldn't. I don't know that they could keep everybody. Harden, Paul, and Kawhi, and be able to do anything else with this team. They would have been into the second apron. And for those who aren't familiar with that out there, it's not the new salary cap is not just that you pay a tax. It's that they literally take away all of your ability to reconstruct your roster in other ways with the mid-level exception and being able to pick up free agents who have been released that make a certain amount. It has become so punitive that every team, even if Steve Ballmer has the money, Joe Lacob has the money, but they're looking at it going, our hands will be tied in terms of our GM's hands will be tied in terms of being able to reconstruct this roster. So I think that they were not in a good spot, but clearly they decided that we're okay building around. If we can only pick two. You know what? We'll go with Kawhi and James because the numbers work.
What's the purpose behind what feels like a pretty hard cap? Is it to be able to retain your own players? What's the impetus behind it?
I think that was the idea. I think in part retain your own players, and then the other part was that having multi-billionaires come in and just spend their way to winning a ring, that there were enough owners that didn't have the wherewithal to do that they were able to press the issue that we want this. We don't want the Lakers and any of the top teams to not only have an advantage because of where they are and all that, but then when a free agent becomes available, is on the market or gets released for money reasons, that now they have the wherewithal to pick up the best that are out there. So I think it was a matter of, not allowing owners who don't care about the bottom line to be able to spend their way to winning a title. And then I believe the other part is looking at parity. As much as fans want parity out there, parity has never worked as far as ratings and revenue for the NBA. It's always been, if you have that one super team and superstar that everybody's gunning for, that's been the model that has drawn the most attention and the best ratings. But as we're seeing now, with the anticipated new TV rights, and maybe we should say video rights, since we're going to get into streaming companies as well. Like, I don't know that the need for that is there as far as being able to sell the product. They're still going to the rates are still going to go up. They're still going to make billions of dollars. So I believe that the NBA is in a place where they're like, you know what, we can go with parity. We can go with a model where let's restrict ourselves. I mean, really it comes down to owners also not wanting to get, even the billionaire owners not wanting to get into an arms race. So the new deal, as the salary cap has always been, is to try to restrict owners from themselves, from just indulging themselves and overspending.
Are the Knicks done?
Are they done making deals or making moves?
Making substantial moves. Like, is Julius Randle a Knick next year?
Yeah, I would imagine that he is, just because I don't know that there's a robust market for Julius. I'm sure that they are looking around. But at this stage, losing Isaiah Hartenstein was a big loss in my mind. If they had found a way to retain him, then and probably in part finding a way to move Randall, again, fiscally would have made it easier to do that with Hartenstein. That's a huge loss for them. I think he's a key component, not quite on the level of Kristaps Porzingis with Boston, but someone like that in terms of a skilled big. Mitchell Robinson can't give you that same thing. The thing that Hartenstein gives him is that passing from the elbow. Well, now the closest thing you have to a skilled big on that team is Julius Randle. So if you're going to move him, you're going to have to get somebody as good or better. And I don't know that that the market has that out there, or that anybody has interest in making that deal. So as of right now, I would expect Julius Randle to be a New York Knick next season, and I would not expect any more dramatic changes. I like their team with Hartenstein. I love that team.
Okay. Ric Bucher joining us. DeJounte Murray was sent packing, and the big question was, would Trae Young be traded? Trae Young's far and away the most popular Atlanta Hawk they've had since Dominique, maybe even preceding Dominique Wilkins. So does this, with Murray being moved, does that mean Trae Young stays in Atlanta?
I would think so. I mean, they knew that they had to break them up, and it's as much as anything, it's like they needed to break them up, and there was a better market for DeJounte than there was for Trae, just because of the size of the contract and the feeling that he's good, but he's probably more valuable to Atlanta because of that popularity than he would be to anybody else in terms of the number. I don't know that anybody else around the league looks at Trae and says, this is a cornerstone guy for a championship team. Really good player, exciting, gets numbers, but the core of a championship, I don't know that the perspective around the league is that he's that. And so they had the opportunity or they knew they had to break up the two of them, and they were able to do that with DeJounte. Now, what is interesting is DeJounte going to New Orleans and the Pelicans having to make a decision on Brandon Ingram. I know they'd like to retain him. They do not want to pay him the full boat that he wants, and I don't know that they will. And again, we could be running into a little bit of a Paul George situation with the New Orleans Pelicans and Brandon Ingram in terms of we want to keep you, but we have a number in mind, and if we can't meet that, then we'll find a way to move you. It's another situation where Brandon Ingram and what he wants. First of all, there aren't a whole lot of teams out there that have massive cap room. So it probably ends up being a trade. And while I think people like Brandon, I don't know that they love him to the point that they'd be willing to take him on for a max deal.
Okay, so give me the big name player we're not thinking of that's going to be moved here this week.
Oh wow! You need to send me a question like that ahead of time so I can.
I know your phone is buzzing. I know you got a bunch of texts to return. I understand how this works, and I know there's a name on that phone. And you're like, ooh. I mean, like, look, I have a list. I've been keeping a running tab of the names that we've mentioned.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, tell me a name we haven't mentioned. I mean,
I'm trying to. Well, immediately I have to go to the teams that are somewhat cap-strapped right now, or are looking to make that sizable move, and we've seen a lot of it already. So, I'm a little bit at a loss here in terms of. Let me just take a quick look.
Well, I mean, you have. I mean, they're trying to move Zach LaVine, but what about DeMar DeRozan? Yeah. I mean, who?
Well,
one of the Bulls. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's another instance where DeMar. Look, there isn't a taker for Zach with that contract. There just isn't, and financially, I don't know that the Bulls can do what they'd love to keep DeMar. Financially, I don't know that they can do it. I think they're up against it the same way that Paul George is. So the other big question is in Cleveland with Donovan Mitchell. Like, is he all in? Is that the direction that they're going to go? Is he going to commit? And they need an answer sooner rather than later on that. So that's another name I would keep an eye on. And then looking across the board, I am not seeing another team
Andrew Wiggins
that is going to do something dramatic. What's that?
Andrew Wiggins? He doesn't get moved?
The only way he gets moved is if the Warriors are willing to attach a pick, is what I've been told. Like, Wiggins is in a place where people believe he was at his best with the Warriors, and the Wiggins that we saw last year is more the norm and the 2022 Wiggins is the exception. And so I think the Warriors are in a place where they're like, we need to find a way. Our best path is to find a way to recreate 2022 Wiggins. Because we don't want to have to give them a pick or some sort of asset in order to move Wiggins, and that's what it would be. It would be kind of the D'Angelo Russell, please take him off our hands, and we'll give you a pick to do it. That is the state of Andrew Wiggins right now in the league, from what I have been told. And everything that I see in Minnesota is that, as of right now, they're going to try to run it back. They believe that the only thing they need to do is mature and do it on a timeline that Mike Conley is not too mature.
Yeah, I got you. He's Ric Bucher. Read his work at foxsports.com. Of course, you can see him on TV on Fox Sports 1. He's the absolute best. Bucher, I appreciate you joining us. I know you're busy. Thanks for joining us on Fox Sports Radio.
You got it, Doug.
All right, coming up next in the Herd, we got the latest on Brandon Ayuk. That's next in the Herd.